It's David. Welcome. MSOM 601, Module 2. Hope you had a great first week and that it wasn't too challenging for you, that you're getting your foot into this master's degree program and into this course. So, Module 2 this week, I'm coming to you today from Arlington River Rock Inn, which is an absolutely stunning property owned by some very good friends of ours. From here north of Seattle, and we're in the foothills of Cascade Mountains. If you're ever in Seattle and need a great place to stay, this is it, Arlington River Rock Inn. So we're here for a week or so, and I wanted to talk to you about Module 2. Module 2 focuses on analyzing arguments. Now, when I use the phrase argument, I don't mean it in the sense, nor do the authors of the textbook do it from the sense of the political argument that you get in. You end up hollering and calling other people names and all those other things. But it's argument more from the traditional thought process of A versus B, B versus C, and so on. And so critical thinking requires that you analyze those arguments using some structure, some ideas, and how you do that's very, very important. And so you have readings in Chapter 4 this week. Chapter 4 talks about clarifying ideas and concepts. Extremely important, right? I mean, because if you're talking to somebody, before you start debating a topic, you need to make sure that you're debating the same thing, right? Because sometimes what will happen, or what could happen, is that you're talking about one thing, somebody else is talking about something totally different, and then you start arguing, thinking you're arguing the same thing. And so clarifying those ideas, clarifying those concepts, you may not agree on those, but at least you understand where the other person is coming from. And so it makes it much easier to develop a foundation for the argument, for the other types of concepts, if you know where people are. That's why one of the things that you're going to see about that I do in papers is I'm really big about defining. And so making sure that early on you define the terms, you define your ideas, you define those things so that the reader or the person that if it's a verbal conversation, fully understands the concepts as you see them, right? So I think that's very important. Clarify ideas and concepts. That's Chapter 4. Chapter 5 talks about analyzing arguments. Now this one gets a little bit technical because one of the things that you're going to be doing will be diagramming decisions as you go through this. And so the text presents some diagrams that you'll put very, very technical type stuff. But again, very important for you to understand some techniques to analyze arguments that you are presented with. And again, remember, arguments not from the hostile political debate that you see a lot today, but just from ideas to come up with best solutions for different things. That's Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 this week. The discussion board will talk about context and purpose. Context and purpose, and how do context and purpose affect the quality of the interpretations that you will make as you do this analysis of different things. And so, again, fully important to understand what you mean by context, what you mean by purpose as you go through this. So make sure as you're developing your discussion board post this week that you clearly define your terms before you begin to talk about context and purpose. This will be a great one, by the way, to use the CSU online library for, to look up context and purpose in there and find some academic or professional papers that talk about context and purpose. All right? And then the assignment this week, again, the assignment, written presentation, cover page, introduction section, body headings and content, conclusion section that summarizes your key points, reference page that will recap your sources for your paper. Very important that you follow that format. But it talks about, and it asks you about vagueness and ambiguity. Vagueness and ambiguity and the importance of trying to avoid that. I mean, one of the things that, and again, I've been beating this horse all through this video, that talks about making sure that you clearly define your terms. So if you begin to talk about vagueness and ambiguity, it's really important to understand, how do you define vagueness? How do you define ambiguity? What are the differences between those? Because they are different. And it's going to be important for you to understand those differences, because some of the questions on the test this week, depending on which ones you get, we'll talk about, is this vague, or is it does it deal with ambiguity? And so you need to understand the differences between the two. And so another good place to use the CSU online library, talk about vagueness and ambiguity. Think about this, though. I mean, too often, I think, we throw things out there as a generalization that becomes very vague, and then when the people who work for us or our kids or our spouses or something do it differently, and then we get upset with them. Well, we were either vague or could have been vague or very ambiguous about what we were asking for, what we were looking for them to do. And so the applications for this particular module, I think, are great, because you could take this tomorrow into your workplace and make sure that you add clarity, that you add clarity to your ideas and your concepts, and you try to eliminate vagueness, you try to eliminate ambiguity in what you're doing going forward. All right, this is Module 2. I'm totally accessible this week, so if you need me, make sure you reach out and chat. We'll talk with you soon, and have a great week. Take care.